So we've been talking again about what a structure is. And again, a structure, when you do something like this, you're defining a new data type, and what you put inside of that new data type, you can mix different data types. That is a new variable type right there. Automobile is a new variable type. It has three components. It has a string for make, an int for year, and a double for mileage. What sometimes confuses people is when they start looking at this and you start to do different things with it, is using that dot operator. That dot operator is used a lot, not just with structures. The good news is, if you go, that's confusing, why should it be? In that last program we just did, didn't we say something like text box answer dot text equals something? It's the same thing we're doing here. All right. So this is a member of this. So make is a member of sports car, year is a member of sports car, and mileage is a member of sports car. And that's what we're saying. What's kind of nice about this is you can do this. You can't do that with arrays, but you can do that with structures. That'll literally take everything that's in structure car 1 and copy it into car 2 and make a new structure out of it. If you try doing that with arrays, it won't do it. But here it will. It will. You can pass an entire structure to a routine. You can pass an entire structure back from a routine. Notice if you want to be able to change the stuff that's in there, when you pass it, you need the word ref. We talked about that in earlier classes. Again, like arrays, you can't compare two objects, or I'm sorry, two structures to one another. That doesn't work. You have to compare them member by member. So it's kind of a pain in the butt to have to do that, especially if you've got a really big structure with a lot of different elements in it. You can have an array of structures. So notice how that ends up looking when you do that. The name of the array, and then the index inside of brackets, dot, and then the name of the structure element. You can have arrays of structures. You can have structures that hold arrays. You can get some really wild-looking stuff when you start getting complex with this. All right. They do mention that something that was talked about that we kind of glossed over back in Chapter 7 is this. If you do something like what is shown right here, that's going to create literally a list of automobile items. Okay? And why would you want to do a list instead of a structure, or instead of an array? Well, lists are pretty easy to work with once you've worked with them for a while, because they've got insert and remove and a lot of other things that make them fairly simple to use. That's the good news. The bad news is when you create them, you got to use this ugly syntax. All right. So you say the word list, and then the type inside of angle brackets. In this case, it's automobile. The name of the list, which is car list, and then you've got to say new list, again with the type, and then you need the parentheses, which basically says, now do the initialization for me. Some people find that when they're first starting out just very hard to understand. All right. So they don't use it. So he shows you, he builds a little interface where you're able to manually input the make, the year, and the mileage. And when you click it, then it displays all the stuff that you've just put in there. It's pretty simple stuff. It may not look like it, but it really truly is pretty simple. And again, he explains it line by line. And then he gives you the associated code. Notice he puts in a try-catch block to make sure that, for example, for the string, you're putting in a string. For the year, you're putting in an int. For the mileage, you're putting in a double, etc. All right. This is where this stuff is actually used, and this is sort of a lead-in to what we'll go over in Chapter 11. So imagine you had a list of people in here, so that's a list box, and when you click on one of those, it just brings up a text box, and it fills in their phone number. All right. Now, you could build your own address book app, but what I'm saying is that's already built. And all I want is I want to be able to bring up anybody's name. So if I click Kevin Brown, I want that to come up here. What we'll learn in Chapter 11, the last chapter in the last week of class, is some of the stuff that we're doing in that population database that you're doing now for Chapter 7. But what we'll do is instead of using that in a text file, we'll put it into a database, and we'll grab the information out of a database. All right. So this right here, they're not grabbing it from a database, they're just grabbing it from a list box. You may or may not have noticed this. I'm not going to do it right now, but if you go into a list boxes and drop-down lists, etc., they have special properties in there that are called things like data source, so you can hook them up directly to databases. And we'll talk a little bit about that, like I said, in a few weeks. So that's the file where you'd get the information from. Notice it's a comma-separated variable list. And he explains it. He goes through exactly pictorially what's happening. All right, and then he shows you the code. Goes over line by line what he's about to put into the code. But since this example is, he hasn't gotten to databases yet, he doesn't use databases. He just uses a file. All right, again, an enumerated type is a programmer-defined data type. So if I create this, that says that I've got a new data type called day. Its possible values are Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. The way that the system actually looks at these is it equates numbers with them. So that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If I want that to be 1 and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all I do here is say Sunday equal 1. I don't even have to put the rest in there. But there's now a brand new data type that's of type day. So I can create day workday. And I could say workday equals day dot, so the only thing that's valid in there are Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And I believe that all that stuff that you put in there is also case dependent. So it's expecting it to be put in, whatever value you put in there, it's supposed to be the same caseness as you put it in here. But it's a way to create user-defined data types. And it's basically used for what you see on the screen right here on page 516. Because it can take like a switch statement, and rather than saying case day 0 or case 0, case 1, or case 1 through 7, you can give it the actual day of the week, which again makes your program just a little bit more self-documenting. They do something with colors in here. I don't remember what it was. Not going to go through that. And the last thing that's discussed in here, starting on page 522, is this image list. Again, it's called a list because it allows you to store a collection of images. At runtime, you can retrieve an image from an image list control and declare it or put it in a picture box control. Think about it this way. Let's suppose that for each one of you, all right, let's pretend we're into the database stuff now. So for each one of you in the database, I've got your first name, your last name, information about you, and a picture of you, literally a picture. All right. So if we looked at that thing that we saw before with all the phone numbers in it, so if I say Mike Rates and I click on that, then I could, in an image list, I could have an image of each one of you, and it would go out there and it would find the picture of Mike and put it into a picture box control. That's typically how these are used. All right. So it says at runtime you can figure out which one of the ones that you want to use. They give you a couple guidelines here. You better do this. Don't make all the images different sizes. All right, because it'll look really weird when you display it. All right. Images should be no more than 256 by 256, and they should all be the same format. In other words, you shouldn't mix bitmaps with JPEGs, with PNGs, etc. It's a container control, so when you drag one in, it doesn't show on your form. It shows down below at the bottom. All right. And you can fill it up whatever way you want to fill it up. Notice it's called an image list control. So in many ways, it's like a list box that we've already talked about. Not the exact same thing, but in many ways, it's similar. This is that random card thing. This is the last thing I believe that's in the chapter. So ideally, there's 52 different things that can be chosen here. So we're going to generate a random number either between 0 and 51 or 1 and 52. And whatever that number is, when you click that, it's going to show the corresponding card. And again, literally, like I said, that's it. So I just want to mention one thing. It's 9:27. I said I'd get you done by no later than 9:30. So next week will be lab all week. This someplace in here. Sum of numbers in a string. That's the one we just did. Or we did at the beginning of class. So it's the one on page 531. All right. So next week will be lab. When you come back in 2 weeks. All right. In 2 weeks, when you come back in, or a week from Monday, whatever you want to say, we're going to be going over Chapter 9. The example we're going to go over is a fairly simple example. You may not think so when we do it, because some of the stuff, even those of you who are in the Java class, no, the classes are done differently in this language. All right. But the program that we do will not be a very big program. All right. So we'll go over that, and then if we can do it in one period, great. Then the next period will be lab, then 10, same kind of thing, then 11. Then we're done. All right. I will ask that, because some of you are either going to be finished or maybe are finished with everything. Please, if you can, remember to come in here in the last week of class and do the course evaluations. My boss, I had my meeting with her yesterday. Once a year, we have this thing. It's called a PGSA. It's a professional growth and something assessment, skills assessment. And she put down on there, thank you so much. She said, you're usually the only one who gives me the evaluation forms. She says most teachers do them and never share them with their boss. Well, it's only fair. I'm evaluating you by giving you a grade. So it's your chance to evaluate me. And that's kind of what you're doing. All right. That's all